10-year-old. A 10-year-old lioness would be looking fairly bedraggled by this stage. One of the lionesses here is probably close to 9, I would say. But a 10-year-old lion is quite an old lion. And 12 years would be very old, and 14 years unusually old. 15 unusually alive. The record, of course, out here for a male, there you can see trying again with a female who is not lactating and kind of begging now. The record for a male in this area, everyone, is about 16 or 17 years, and those were the old Sparta males down on the Sand River. And I don't think anyone has come close to that age here, you know, beyond that. The Nkuhuma Pride, at least the Nkuhuma males, when they came in, they were probably about 5 and 6 years old. They didn't last more than 2 or 3 years, so they were definitely gone by the time they were 10. The Majingis, the Majingaland Coalition, I think they're pushing about 10 now. They've been fairly long-lived. Matimbas, how do we know how old the Matimbas were? I think they were about 10 as well, actually. They looked sort of 9 or 10 years old, maybe a little bit older than that, and they didn't last beyond their 10th or 11th years as the dominant lions here. So that's all quite interesting. Thank you, Sarah, for that. Your research is valuable, and I hope you keep doing it. It's great stuff. It's the same kind of safari that a tourist would get to see. Lucian, is exactly the same kind of safari. You'd be able to come in here, you'd be able to look at these lions, you'd be able to spend time with them and ask questions about them and engage with them in the same way. The only real difference, Lucian, is that on the sort of live safari, live type safari, you get to come back day in and day out without having to pay the fairly, well, shall we say, less than cheap fees that it costs to stay in the Sabi Sands. But yes, absolutely, there are guests coming in and out of these sightings all the time. I'm not sure why no one's come to see us here. I'm not sad about that. I'm quite enjoying having these cubbies to ourselves. Rather fun. Another patient mother there, you can see. Hitting away the odd fly as the youngster tries to suckle. Safari Ginny in Canada, I don't know the answer to your question, but I'm going to say probably not. You say, would the newborn's mother's milk be richer than the older mother's milk, or the mother of the older cubs? I don't think so. I think it probably just depends on the mother and how much she's eating, and of course how much is being drunk from her. So I think what you'll find is that some of them just produce better milk and more milk. Now, for example, the youngster who produced the 3 little bears, as I like to call them, the fat ones. Oh, look, she's getting very cross now, Dave. Getting very irritated with them as they fight. Look at them fighting there. Now, I think she's produced particularly good milk. I can't remember seeing such amazingly fat little lions before. And I think you'll find that the older the mother gets, obviously, as it is with humans, so probably the greater the difficulty she will have in producing good quality milk. And the mother of the little ones, I think, is the youngest lioness that we have here. It's wonderful, you know, to sit like this, and there's always something going on, something interesting to look at. Somebody walking around, lying down, trying to have a suckle, stalking someone else. I mean, look at that ridiculous thing, Dave. You pan down slightly, that ridiculous little lion having a snooze there, practicing for adulthood. I mean, could not be more content if it tried, could it? Just loving life. And why shouldn't we? Life ain't gonna ever get easier than it is right now for you, chum. So enjoy it while it lasts. I wonder if they know they've only got a 1 in 10 chance of making it to independence. Oh, stalking. Yes. Well spotted. Look at that. And that's the tiny little ones stalking there. Totally instinctual behaviour. And again I'm struck, by the difference between the 2 leopard cubs and the lion cubs. And it's totally normal, but the lion cubs have to forge these social bonds from the time they are born. And they will play and lie in close contact with each other and feed next to each other and suckle next to each other and fight for food almost immediately. Shongile and Hosana could not possibly be described as enemies, but they are certainly nowhere near as affectionate with each other as the lions are, and that is not unusual, it's completely normal. A leopard must learn to live on its own from almost the beginning. And then the lion cubs, of course, will be social from day one. And they're the only social cats, remember. The other thing to ponder, of course, is that we have 3 different ages of cubs here. We have at least 3 males amongst the 8. And those 3 males, let's pretend now in 2 years' time that no other cubs have been born and they get tossed out eventually. Those 3 males, although they are on their own, at least not on their own, although they're of slightly different ages, will most likely form a coalition. Go ahead. And what happens is, therefore, you have these coalitions where they're not all brothers. And that's, I think, probably what's happened with the Birmingham boys, and it's certainly what happened with the Matimbas. I don't think they were brothers, I think they were cousins. Go ahead. I'm just trying to get hold of somebody hailing me on the radio. Good? You? I don't know why people need to ask how people are on the Game Drive radio. It becomes a telephone without a bill. No, just me. Affirmative, make your way. It hurts me to say, it really hurts me to say, I'm fine, thank you, and how are you on the Game Drive radio. When I did my training, there was absolutely no way you were allowed to do that. And somebody, you won't believe it today, David, on the Game Drive channel said a bad word. They swore. Terrible. Dreadful behaviour. That little thing on its back is quite astounding. Little lioness. She's enjoying her childhood, as all lionesses should, and indeed all young mammals. As I said this morning, I'm reminded of my nephews, William and Jack, and William and Jack enjoying their lives in Johannesburg as plump little toddlers, much like these lionesses. I do hope their mother isn't watching. If I describe them as plump little toddlers, I may be in trouble next time I go to Johannesburg. But it's not meant as an insult at all. Without a care in the world, and it's exactly the same as it is with these lionesses. Yeah, Doodle, this is the good question that is inevitably asked when we're looking at little lion cubs. You say, at what age will they be safe from the attentions of... When you see the other lioness there? One of the lionesses has departed, everyone. She might be stalking Dave from behind, but we'll notice that. If the camera jerks suddenly, it's Dave being removed from the back of the car. Doodle, they'll be safe from marauding males only after they're probably at least a year old, but preferably 2. So somewhere between a year and 2 years they're safe. I have read a year old, I've seen a year old, but I've also seen cubs or sub-adults sort of between a year and a half old being killed. So It really does. It's not a fixed thing, but a year old is about the minimum normally. You see her there, Dave?
Yeah.
You can. What's she doing?
She's just sniffing around.
She's sniffing around, is she? She's not sniffing at the tyre next to you? No, good. Excellent. And they're all watching. All the little cubbies are now watching her. Interested. They are beyond speech, these things. They are so cute, it is almost unfathomable. The desire to get out and go and pick one up is almost overwhelming until you look to the side and see their mothers. And then you realize that would be a very silly idea indeed. Were you to catch one of these things, you'd find that they weren't quite as sweet as they look. I think you'd find that their claws and teeth are already well developed enough. Ooh, right here, David. Just walking past. Hello. Nothing to see here. Keep going. That's it. I'm just going to help Abel to get in here. I think Ephraim is also trying to respond here. We might have to leave, but I don't think we will. I think we're going to be okay to stay here for a little while longer. We have had a magnificent afternoon with them if they do decide that one or two more people wish to come in here. Eating a stick, always a good idea as a youngster, David? Yes. I like to eat sticks even at my advanced age. Oh, look at this little thing very close to us, David. I think I might take a photograph of him. Yes. A world beater. I can just get it in focus. No, that's not going to be a world beater. It wasn't in focus. Lion's eyes were shut. That one missed the foot. It's so sweet, isn't it? Hello. Do you want to come over here? If you do, don't tell your mother. Just wander over. You can come and sit on my lap for a little while, scratch you behind your ears, and then you can go back. No, they are just too much, these things. The little feet. Hello, Roger. You're wondering whether they have killed an impala perhaps last night, and because they don't look too hungry. I don't know. They could have easily, Roger. You know, as I've said to you before, quite easily that they kill impala very often, and we just don't see it, of course, and that's because we are. Well, they would devour it. 5 lionesses would devour an impala in less than half an hour. I think, Roger, most likely, however, is that they haven't bothered to go hunting since they ate that buffalo last. So no, I'm going to say no, I don't think they have, but it's certainly not impossible. It's very, very enjoyable to sit here with them. The temperature slowly starting to drop now as the sun begins its inexorable sinking towards the western horizon, where it will eventually sink beyond the Drakensberg Mountains. And back on Cheetah Plains, Miss Jamie the Elegant Antelope Patterson is with some more elephants.
Seems to be an elephant-themed afternoon this afternoon, and I just can't bring myself to leave a sighting as magnificent as this. All of our lovely elephants have calmed down and they've spread out, found their individual feeding spots for now. And it's just such a perfect picture as the sun starts to go down and the light starts to turn golden. I really do enjoy just spending time with them. Oh, she's so pregnant. I've just realized. I wondered why she looked so enormous. She's a pregnant lady. And in fact, she's so pregnant that I think she might almost be on the verge of lactating. Just having a look at the mammary glands that I saw briefly while she was walking. They look swollen to me. It looks like she may well be on the verge of giving birth. An elephant is a massive animal, I mean, that goes without saying, but in terms of looking for signs of pregnancy, the elephants' females carry their pregnancies quite high, if I could say it like that. So they tend to bulge upwards towards the sort of outwards from their spines, more so than an unpregnant cow. And that's one of the ways that you can look for it. And towards the end of their 22-month gestation period, and you can imagine that they start to become quite large, cumbersome, and quite uncomfortable. And she's done very well to carry that particular calf to full term. And I wish her all the best, because she's got some seriously tough times ahead of her unless we get some rain in the not-too-distant future. To support herself and a calf is going to be incredibly difficult. And Cindy in Florida, lovely to have you on board. I do hope you are enjoying this elephant sighting. Just watching, I'm keeping an eye on this little calf that's playing about in front of me. But before we go on to that little calf, Cindy, you're wondering about the trees with green leaves, because of course we keep going on about the drought, and then every now and again you get this bright green flash of guarri tree or guarri bush like this one in front of us. Yes, they are the trees that the animals don't eat. They don't have very much in the way of nutrition, and they're very, very high in tannin contents. So they're very bitter and unpleasant for the animals to eat. So when you see the animals eating guarri bushes, you know immediately that they are really starting to get particularly desperate. Those bright flashes of green. The guarri bushes are the ones that keep their leaves throughout the years, which means they're very useful in terms of acting as something like a fire beater, perhaps. Or, as we saw this morning with the Wahlberg's eagle, a really, really nice padding for their nests. But they're not very high in nutrients at all, so the elephants and the other creatures tend to avoid them. It's one of the big reasons that's been put forward as to why the lions and leopards urine spray on guarri bushes, because they maintain their leaves and then obviously keep the scent for that little bit longer. Yes, little one. You're so cute. Running off into the shade to join in. There you go, you've got a young elephant eating some of the guarris. Guarri, by the way, for newer viewers, is spelled Guarri. It's the Euclea divinorum tree. And whenever we talk about how incredibly dry and dusty it is, we always somehow manage to find a guarri bush in frame that sort of makes us look silly. But they don't have much in the way of nutrients at all. A tuskless female, or I'm not sure if she's tuskless or if she's got one tusk. I think she is tuskless at the back. There you go, you can see. The wind is gusting, so I'm giving the elephants quite a lot of personal space. They seem to be perfectly relaxed, but I want to make sure that we don't upset them in any way. It's getting stronger and stronger. I don't know if there's some kind of cold front blowing in, or if it's just the spring winds bringing with it. We actually don't really enjoy the wind here, because it's going to increase the evaporation effect of the heat even more so than it would otherwise without the wind. Let's shuffle forward a bit. And as we wait for, I just want to stop here so that we don't block the rest of the herd from moving past us. As we wait for the rest of the herd, Jane in Massachusetts, lovely to have you on board on the Sunset Safari. You wanted to know how elephants sleep. And the answer is they can lie down, although it's quite unusual for the adults to do that. Little calves will go and lie down and pass out for an hour, with the whole herd protectively around them, making sure that they are safe while they nap. As they start to get older, they sleep less and less until, for the adults, they'll take short naps, maybe 5, 10, up to 20 minutes at a time. Usually, leaning against it, they can just sleep standing up. They might go and lean against a tree or a termite mound. In exceptional circumstances, they will lie down flat. And I've come upon full-grown male elephants lying down completely flat on their side. I thought it was a dead elephant, until I realized that it was just an elephant bull fast asleep. They can lie down. Getting up is always a bit of a tricky experience for the bigger elephants, because as you can imagine, hoisting that bulk back onto their feet is a tough process, which is why they generally prefer to lean on trees or termite mounds or sand banks, somewhere where they've got a bit of a give back up again. Look at them all gathered here. Such a peaceful scene. We've just got elephants spread out around us. What you got, little one? Got a dried up stick. Seems as though this afternoon's Monday sunset safari is a thoroughly peaceful one, filled with scenes of family contentment. And speaking of scenes of family contentment, let's go back over to the lovely Nkuhuma Pride.
As she linked there, everybody, she said lovely, and I thought that's so kind of her. And then she said Nkuhuma Pride and not James Hendry, and I'm obviously abjectly pained in my heart. Anyway, we're here with the lions, and they're very lovely to see. Not much going on, other than the inevitable, unspeakable cuteness of the lions. Now this little fellow, teddy bear lion, trying to eat some buffalo dung, and then going to play with his slightly older cousin. Oh no, man. I mean, you can't even watch that. Hey? Just unbelievable. I think it's the fluffiness of them as well. And they don't rest, you know, they haven't been completely rested at all. Fiona, you're wondering, you say, do lions like to sleep near elephant dung, or is it a function of the amount of elephant dung it is? It's a function of the amount of elephant dung that there is. They don't have any real desire to sleep next to elephant dung. It's just that there is elephant dung absolutely everywhere, especially now, anywhere near shade, because all of the open areas are denuded of any kind of grass, so there's nothing for the elephants to eat there. They come through these areas where there's a bit of wood and there's still something for them to eat, and they walk through the sort of more heavily woodland areas, and they will make their fertilization deposits. And the lions will almost inevitably therefore find themselves lying in amongst the very fragrant and gorgeous smelling elephant dung. Elephant dung, for those of you who don't know, when it comes out it smells a bit ripe, but after a few days in the sun it is the most wonderful smelling stuff. Well, most wonderful is probably a bit strong, but it is very pleasant to smell. And there's no bullying going on, you can see. I don't know, I mean, no bullying at all going on between the older cubs and the younger ones. And it's interesting, you know, it's so indicative and so different from, for example, a wolf pack or a wild dog pack, where there will be bullying. And and even in the hyena clan, where the bullying sorts out who is going to be the alpha, who is going to be the dominant. In the case of the wolf pack or the wild dog pack. But in the case, look at that, the mum's just gone over to the one that's been sleeping quietly on his own, and it's almost like she's gone to say, "Are you all right over here? Why aren't you playing with the others? Are you all right?" That little one has been fast asleep there on his own for at least 20 minutes, and now Mum's gone over to see if he's okay. Isn't that sweet? Yes. Are you alright? You feeling a little peaky, are you? Hello Sarah, nice question from you. You say, have I noticed the cub with the old injury from a while back? No, I haven't, Sarah, and that's because that injury, I believe, it has healed completely. And I was just thinking about that now. Of course, there were dire predictions of the fate that poor animal was going to suffer. At various stages, it had broken its pelvis, it had broken a femur, it had dislocated its hip, it had almost certainly suffered some kind of terrible spinal injury, and we can't find that one anymore. It's absolutely healed, completely fine, nothing wrong with it at all, Sarah. They're amazingly resilient. Look at this little ridiculousness here. You see that one there, Davy? It is so cute. Fast asleep now. Natasha, you say, why are some of the babies looking more pale than the others? They are. You're absolutely correct. You're not missing that at all. It's a function of their age, Tasha. I think, and the older ones do seem to be a bit darker, I must say. But if you look, Davey, if you go in on that one, you're on there. No, the other one, you're on that one. You can see there is a mantle of black or dark hair at the back. And I think that expands slightly as they get a little bit older, and then it goes again as they're adults. And I think that probably helps them to hide in the thick bushes when they are trying to stay undetected while their mothers hunt. I'm interested by that one at the back there, and for the length of time that it's been asleep, I wonder if it isn't feeling a little bit ill. Maybe there is some little minor infection it's suffering from. It might just be a lazy lion, which certainly wouldn't be the first lion in the world to have been described as such. I did also get into quite a lot of trouble to begin with when I began this job. I referred to Junior, the Nkuhuma male lion, as being lazy once or twice too often. There was an outcry on Twitter, the insult that I was subjecting Junior to. Anyway, poor old Junior. I wonder where he is. I'd so love to find out how he's going and what he's doing with his new coalition partner. We think he formed a coalition. Now, we were talking about sleep, and I read something today on a website that is a very good news website, but not necessarily renowned for its accurate biology, and it said that giraffes sleep for 7 to 30 minutes of a day. Now, I would have thought that was utter rubbish. So I would have said they sleep for probably 5 or 6 hours a day, and I'd love to know if anybody has anything further to say on the matter. Does a giraffe really sleep for 7 to 30 minutes a day? Or do they, I mean, that's in a 24-hour period, or do they sleep for much longer? Because I would have said 5 or 6, maybe, 5 or 6 hours. While we look at these lions, the sun now starting to sink gently below, well, not to the horizon yet, but the light is turning from that pale, kind of washed out white colour to this lovely yellow gold. And soon they will be backlit, David. Oh, now you see, this is a wonderful question from Safari Ginny in Canada. Safari Ginny, you say, will the mothers stop lactating when their cubs are 6 months old at weaning, or only when the oldest cubs are 6 months old? My gut instinct, Safari Ginny, says to me the latter, that as long as the sort of lactating stimulus is there. So as long as there's a youngster trying to suckle from them, I think they will continue producing milk. In the same way that I think, as far as I understand it, with a human being, a woman will stop producing milk after her baby stops suckling. Is that correct? I think that's correct. And the longer the child keeps suckling, that stimulus, that action of nursing and suckling, stimulates the production of milk. Is that correct? Kirsten says she thinks so. David is giggling. Are you giggling at our friend there? Yes. The other game drive who asked me how I was on the game drive channel is now leaving, having spent precisely 3.5 minutes with possibly the top sighting on the reserve. Ah well. That is the thing about being a guide, of course, these days, is that it's a great big rush to get from one sighting to the other. We don't have to do that, A, because we have an audience that is on safari more often than guests in the area, and also because we have basically you're on 2 game drives at the same time.
With our lovely elephant herd. The one thing that has changed is the wind, which is getting worse every single moment that we're out here. It is now starting to howl, and my plan about going to the open area, I think I may have changed my mind about that particular spot. It's bad enough here where we are, which is quite open. It's starting to gust. It wants to take my hat off. Definitely a very, very windy afternoon. There's the tuskless female, so she is tuskless. Sorry, not another one, it's the same one with her little calf. For newer viewers, to see an elephant without tusks is not a usual occurrence here, but it is not all that unusual. It's about 4% of them. Debbie, you were wondering what causes some elephants to be tuskless. It is just a genetic abnormality. They don't grow tusks at all. As you know, tusks are modified in size of teeth, very strange sort of setup, very, very unusual in terms of the way that they have grown with elephants, and sometimes you get all kinds of bizarre abnormalities. We've seen some with backward-facing tusks. There's some with split tusks that have turned into 1 or 2 tusks sticking out of the same sort of place. And the tuskless elephant, sorry, there's dust blowing around, it's just gone straight into my eye. The tuskless elephant is about 4% of the population that experience that particular situation. Now, I think that calf, not quite old enough to know yet whether or not it has inherited mom's tuskless nature. Quite often, I've noticed that tuskless females tend to be slightly more on edge than the tusked females. I don't know if that's just because they feel more vulnerable, or if it's just perhaps a conclusion that I've drawn that's purely coincidental. I've just noticed that quite a few of the tuskless females, in my experience, have been a bit more unsettled with my presence than others. Look at this little baby underneath the tree, keeping itself thoroughly busy and entertained. They don't need to eat as often as the adults do. What are you doing? And darkness has descended upon Cheetah Plains very quickly. In a bizarre turn of affairs, we have no picture, but I can still talk to you. Would you like a radio show, Safari Live Radio? Perhaps not. Perhaps while we figure out why your picture has disappeared off your screens, it might be an idea to send you over to James.
There is David being very artistic, everybody. This is called a rack focus on the sunset. Is that correct, David? Well done. A very nice rack focus on the sunset there. Beautiful. The guarri bushes gently blowing in the northwesterly breeze, rustling their leaves. and in the background you might just be able to hear the very cross little lion cubs as they try and feed from their mother. David, that was very artistically special, I must confess. I wish I could take a photograph like that. Unfortunately, I am incompetent and cannot. Yes, that's exactly the correct response. Marvellous. That one is now watching his siblings as they attempt to do each other harm. And everyone thinking about having something nice to eat. I wonder what a radio safari would be like. I think it'd be quite fun. I've no doubt Jamie Patterson could pull off a radio safari. I think we should ask her to do it one day. Now I'm just going to try and help Ephraim into the sighting while these lions behave like lions. Look at them growling and cross with each other now, and Mum's getting sick and tired of it. Leaving a great pile of lion cubs there. It is relentless. One or other of them is being assailed constantly by these cubs. Sorry, my head is in the way. Assailed by the hungry little things there. Straight back on. And I think it's fine when they're one or two, but when there are 5 or 6 of them, it becomes trying, I imagine. In the background there, a ring-necked dove. I tell you, who would be a lioness? Not an easy life. And now the games are getting a little bit more rough and tumble as we head towards the sunset. Things have cooled down a bit. I think that's 3 of different ages there. Oh, that's a wonderful shot. Isn't that nice? Pity we went round the other side. I could have had a photograph of them. Well, not unless they'd been really tired and lain there for 4 hours while I managed to prepare myself. So sweet. I'm just going to ask... Oh, hang on, no, never mind. Ephraim is breaking down. Tasha, you're wondering about blue-eyed lions and wondering if the cubs ever actually manage to keep their blue eyes into adulthood. I've never seen a tawny lioness with... I've never seen a tawny lioness with blue eyes, but I have seen... I think those white lions maintain their blue eyes, interestingly. So the white lion's leucistic form of the lion, the standard issue lion, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, they maintain the blue eyes. But I've never seen an adult male or an adult lioness, a tawny coloured one with blue eyes, no. But maybe somebody can have a quick look and see if a white lion doesn't have blue eyes. I used to have blue eyes, David, you know that?
Yes.
No, apparently they're green. I find it difficult to tell myself. It's because I'm getting old now. What's a what? Steenbok? Good heavens, we mustn't stay here any longer. Jamie's got a Steenbok, everybody.
I think this might be the bravest Steenbok in all of the Cheetah Plains. We are so incredibly close. Well, for a Steenbok sighting at least. And look at him. He's not even bothered. Busy nibbling away at the raisin bush in front of him. I wish he'd come back out again. I'm too scared to move now. We just had such a perfect view of his beautiful little face. They really are stunning antelope, the little Steenbok, or as James called one yesterday, a Steenbok. Look at their enormous, bright eyes, and his massive ears and tiny little horns. Hello, gorgeous. Aren't you so brave? I don't think it gets better than this in terms of Steenbok sightings. You can see him blinking whenever he gets a little bit too close to the branches and the spines, and they go close to his eyes. Absolutely stunning view. Close enough to see the flies fluttering about him, and his dainty little legs. Quite unusual to see Steenbok out in the open like this. We're on the open area of Cheetah Plains. Look at that! Dainty crossed legs. Wow, I really don't think I've ever had a Steenbok sit still this long, or stand still this long. Sorry. Kirsty's made me laugh. She said those are like your legs. Thanks, Kirst. Look at it nibble away. It's beautiful. I love the white eyeliner as well, or the eyeshadow, I suppose. Just that little highlight nuance. The otherwise tan skin or tan fur. And then those little dagger-like horns, not to be underestimated. And then it looks like somebody put a strip of paint along the top of its nose. Chandra, I don't think I've ever had a Steenbok. I don't think I've ever had a Steenbok stay still this long. Oh, thought about running. No, still here. This is incredible. For newer viewers, a lot of the time what we see of a Steenbok is it disappearing into the distance as it races away from us. Having a sighting like this is an absolute pleasure. Enormous ears and eyes, of course, immediately tell you that this is an animal that spends its life looking out for predators and runs the risk of being hunted constantly. Those giant radar-like ears that move independently to pinpoint the direction of a sound, the slightest creak, and then those enormous sideways-facing eyes to give it the biggest field of view possible. Hello, you are stunning. See where the name comes from. You are such a poser, little Steenbok. See where the name comes from? Steen, sort of stone or brick, that bright red colour that the fur has. Oh, you're so strong. Look at you picking up that entire bush. Ears working reflexively, turning backwards and forwards. Making sure to keep an eye on us and whatever else is out there. Right, well, I think we found the star of the show. A perfect male Steenbok. Joanne, you were wondering about how tall they are at the shoulder. And the answer is, well, I'm 5'7", to give you a rough idea, and the Steenbok would come up come about sort of to my knee height, maybe even just a little bit below that. So well under a foot in height, about half a foot I would say. But yeah, it would come up to about just underneath my knee. So they are absolutely minute little creatures. Duck away. This probably, I mean, we could see a Sharp's Steenbok out here, but it's highly, highly unlikely. So the Steenbok is probably the smallest antelope species that you're going to see on these live safari drives. Although I have to tell you, if we saw a Sharp's Steenbok, we would all be beside ourselves with excitement. They're relatively rare in this part of the Sabi Sand. I think that's a perfect description coming through from Doodle, who said that Steenbok look as though they might belong in a fairy tale forest with their huge ears and eyes and their beautiful little noses. I couldn't agree more. It's like a Disney antelope, isn't it? Little Disney character. Especially this one. I feel like if I start singing it will come up and feed from my hand.
Please try.
No. No. Oh no, where's Steve? No, Steve! He was here the whole time. He was here with those elephants. He's on the first day. Oh, there we go. Phew. Oh, Steve. I was so worried. Sorry, the fairy tale song reminded me. Alright, he's on the first aid kit, everybody. Panic is over, crisis averted, Steve is okay, he has not been taken by a hornbill. Phew, it was the fairy tale comment that made me think of it. There we go. If I sing to you, will you come and feed from my hand, little Steenbok?
He doesn't eat Steve.
As long as he doesn't eat Steve. Valid point. That would be a terrifying end to the fairy tale. I can't believe how brave this little Steenbok is. It's so incredibly comfortable with our presence. Barely glances in our direction every now and again. Come on, now you've gone into exactly the wrong spot. You're meant to be the star of this. Like the South African version of Bambi. Okay, let's see what happens when we turn on. Let's let the engine run for a little bit. So that we don't have the sudden noise and the sudden movement all at the same time. Softly, softly. Right next to the culvert that drains the road. And the Steenbok could not be less bothered by us. It's amazing. When we think of the sightings that we have where they are immediately dashing off in the opposite direction. Should we try going round? Let's try it. Might as well. You're a very brave Steenbok. Very unprotected out here in the open. But I suppose for the little Steenbok, it's almost a comfort. Wait for a sec. Because chances are he'd spot anything trying to sneak up on him. Helen has said I must have a Snow White effect on the animals. I think there's a couple of elephants that would disagree with you, Helen. But I appreciate the compliment. Snow White with the most freckles in any fairy tale. But thank you very much. What a lovely compliment. Let's try and sneak up on the Steenbok. I'm not going to sing though. Trust me. You'll take back everything. And Sarah, you were wondering why it is by itself? Well, Steenbok are solitary antelope. when they're foraging. So what actually they do is they live in pairs, a male and a female, all on their own. And the male and the female will raise their offspring together. They have tiny little territories, but they spend most of their day separate. Oh, bye-bye. And just like that, our Steenbok is off. Bye-bye, little one. Thank you for that particular sighting. So Sarah, they live in monogamous pairs, so they mate for life and they have their own little territory, their little home that they live in. But they do go off separately during the day and they go and forage and look for food. So the female he might be a male still looking for a female, still looking for a mate, but his female could also just be somewhere in the general vicinity feeding off on her own. Well, that's beautiful. And as the sun starts to descend, another beautiful evening, I think that James and myself, well, we started off this morning both looking at the sunrise, and I think it seems only fitting that we start to enter into the final part of the day by both looking at the sunset.
Well, you see, that's the thing about Jamie Patterson. She's just got such a rounded kind of outlook on life. And as she says, we should end the day in the same way that we started it. And there it is. Although I don't think I'm going to end my day with 2 salty cracks and a cup of black coffee. That is how I began my day. And with a cold shower, of course, David. Yes. One should have a cold shower to wake up. Well, you can't have a cold shower, David, because you have long hair, which means that you will be freezing in the morning. No. I remember, this has got nothing to do with the lions, everybody, but because we can just enjoy watching them. I'm not really sure what else to tell you about them at this stage, but I remember when I was about 19, David, my father, was shocked that I hadn't shaved. He was scandalized, in fact. And I said, well, you know, I was camping. I didn't have a chance to shave. There was only cold water. He said, my father fought in the trenches, which he did. And he shaved every day in a small billy of cold water. You have no excuse for your camping trip, which I couldn't really argue with. He still comments almost on a daily basis that I am unshaven. He doesn't realize that I'm trying to look manly and tough, you see. I tell him that Jason Statham doesn't shave either, but he doesn't seem to give too much cognizance to that. Right, back to the lions. You know that perhaps it's a story that you had to be there for when there's just nothing but a stony cricket silence from the final control. We do want to get that, everybody. We want to get a sound effect of crickets calling in the night when a presenter makes a joke that really isn't very funny at all, and Kirsten or Louise or Jerry or Rebecca can push it and it can go crick 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 crick, just to ease the tension a little bit after a poor joke. Kirsten has just said, she is of course the meanest person in the world, she just said it would be on a continuous loop, the cricket sound with my presenting. Thank you, Kirsten. I hope you, well, now I'm not going to say, never mind. Hello, James Ben, Missouri. We were talking about radio safaris, and you were saying that you've got a friend in Namibia who goes out and when he looks at animals, he talks to you on his vehicle radio, and you find it amazing to listen to his descriptions of the animals and scenes that he sees. I think that's brilliant. And I think that if you could actually manage to take a safari and bring it alive to people just through words, well, you'd be pretty skillful, certainly much more skillful than I am. These things are just so very sweet. I thought they were going to get up and start... Oh my goodness, David, just look over there, sorry. There is a cub that is basically asleep on its mother's side. You see that? Look at that. It's gone to sleep there. Or it was, just before I said, have a look at that. That, of course, is the best place to go to sleep, isn't it? Oh, it's so sweet. Oh, and then just turn around and have a bit of a drink. Wonderful. The sun has now set. You see that, David? Well, it's almost set. Let us, as Jamie says, end the day as we began it, actually watching the sun dip down below the western horizon, spraying the area in gold and orange. What other colours have you got there, David?
A couple of blues.
Couple of blues, yes.
A purple, actually.
A purple?
Slightly.
Slightly purple. Not my favourite colour, purple. I suppose in a sunset it's okay. Right, once the sun has gone down, everyone, we're going to slowly make our way out of here, just because we don't want to be here in the dark. And I think we've had an incredible time with these little cubbies and their mummies and aunties. And we'll go and see what else we can find. I don't imagine between now and then it'll be too much, but perhaps a leopard will have popped onto the reserve. So what we'll do is we'll head down towards Twin Dams and come up again for the last half hour. Absolutely unbelievable. Jamie Patterson for the last 3 days has been filming these things for her hero shots, which will be a 15-second sort of promo on who she is for National Geographic. Genre has probably captured about 700 gigabytes of high-definition footage for this 15-second shot, and indeed they're back at it as we speak. So we're going to stay with the lions for a bit longer. Well, I mean, that's hardly a hardship for anybody, is it? And the wind, it's amazing how as the sun sets, the wind starts to blow. And it's a northwester, which in summer can be a harbinger of a big storm. I don't think it's going to be today. I don't think we're going to have a storm at all. But it might be also worthwhile, rather than going towards the south, we could head up towards the west and just see if we can't get a view of if there's some weather perhaps gathering over the Drakensberg. Mum just giving youngster the bath before the evening. Very important, everybody. Child hygiene. And there we are. And baby trying to help mum have a bath as well. That is very sweet. And now trying to bite off her ear. Or her eye. Whatever he can get his little teeth into. So sweet. There's no ways you'd be able to spend 3 hours with lions if they didn't have cubs. You'd die of boredom in the middle of the day. But we've sat here now for 2.5 hours or so, and it's been constantly interesting. Them playing with each other, sleeping in outlandish positions, trying to suckle, having a bit of a fight, waking the mums up so that they have to move around as well. Oh, a good cat stretch. So sweet. Now they're all starting to get slightly more mobile, I suppose. One playing with a stick, two playing with a mum or an aunt, two playing with each other. I've got a little leaf there, you see that, David? It's the equivalent of lion Lego, I suppose. Gracie, aged 9, always asks about whether or not animals have things to play with. Well, there you are, Gracie. If you're watching today, you can see that they've got a little leaf to play with, so not quite, I suppose, from the top drawer of the sophisticated toys. But, you know, if you're a lion, you must make do with a leaf or some buffalo dung or something like that. Oh, there's much cleaning going on now. It's so sweet. And you can imagine how comfortable that little cub is now. How in absolute ecstasy it is. You know that when you tickle your house cat or your dog, they just go into a state of absolute abject joy and they don't want you to stop. And that's why I think that little one is holding Mum's face down. Don't stop, Mum. You can just see they are, as with all cats I suppose, they're just so tremendously affectionate. Until it comes to eating, of course. Alright everybody, the sun has set. We are now going to leave this sighting and carry on, see what else we might be able to pick up on our way out. Are you ready, David?
Yes, James.
It has been marvellous.
Beautiful.
Well, that is a wonderful, wonderful quote from Aqua. You say the cubs stare into our hearts, while the adults stare into our souls. They do, you know. Looking an adult lioness in the eyes, or a male lion in the eyes, it absolutely feels like they're staring into the depths of your soul. I know exactly what you mean, Aqua. I remember the first time that old Amber Eyes stared me down. I was thoroughly intimidated, deeply afraid. Bye-bye, chaps. You've been wonderful. Have a good night. Stay safe, please. Find a bush. Stay silent if your mothers are not here. We'll see you, hopefully, in the morning. Now, David, you noticed, of course, because you were on the vehicle, the utterly incompetent manner in which I got into the current position. I'm hoping to do it without quite so much fuss this time. You weren't with us, everybody. I think you were looking at Stanley the stick insect. Was that his name? Steve. Sorry, Stevie. Stephen the stick insect. Here we go. Ah, George, you say Steve is now the mascot of Safari Live. I certainly wouldn't have any objections to that, of course. Steve, the mascot of Safari Live, which was slightly difficult to sell, I think, you know, if you were, for example, trying to sell the product to a broadcaster and you sent them a covering letter or page or prospectus with a stick insect on the front of it as opposed to one of the Nkuhuma cubs, for example. I fear me somebody might say, seriously? But I think the stick insect is a wonderful idea. What's up, David? Hello, Helen in Melbourne. Really nice question from you. You say you're studying conservation ecology, and how does one become a guide? Well, that's precisely what I did, Helen. I did virtually the same sort of studies. And then, I mean, being a guide, with due respect to the guiding fraternity, and that is myself included, it's not rocket science. What it does take, though, is a little bit of experience, and it takes an enjoyment of communicating, obviously. And you can do various courses around the place that will help you to get the qualifications you need in order to do what we do here. And that, I mean, to do a lodge guiding course can take you from as little as 1 month, which is way too short. You can't be a competent guide after a month of training, up to about 6 months. I think that's the kind of length course you want to do before you are a lodge guide. And then once you're a lodge guide, to do what I do. The thing about doing what Jamie and Brent and I do is that because there's a lot of talking to be done, you've got to talk about lots of different things. It's quite nice to have sort of say a year of experience or so under your belt, so that there's 2 or 3 years experience under your belt, so that you can talk about lots of different things. And that's basically how you do it. But there are lots of different courses you can do out here for guiding. Some lodges do their own in-house training, some don't. And while we get out of this rather difficult area, let's head back to Jamie. Jean-Andre has finished his 755th gigabyte of filming.
James is just making me laugh out loud, so I can only imagine what it must be like from your side as viewers. How much he must be keeping you thoroughly entertained. Well, I thought I'd show you a very pretty sunset, and it is a very pretty sunset, with these very classic silhouetted marula trees, complete with what looks like a leopard lying in one of them. It's not a leopard, unfortunately. I really hoped it was a leopard, but it's not a leopard. It is just a branch. But it looks like it could be a leopard. There. Just there. Stretched out, fast asleep. Not today, though. I've managed to spot a few leopards in trees recently that aren't actually leopards. Aren't those colours incredible? The blues and the yellows and the pinks. Almost, but not quite, inspirational enough for me to break into song. But that's not going to happen today.
I think it is.
Jean-Andre, you are mistaken.
Happened this morning.
Did it? Oh yes, that's true. Actually, I did start singing the Lion King song as the sun rose. That is true. Or fair. That is very true. Moving on, swiftly and with style. We're going to slowly make our way towards the setting sun. We've completed our long journey to the east. It's now time for us to begin our long journey to the west. And back home towards Amanda's cooking, which is always something exciting. What's wrong, Impala? Oh, sprinting across the road in front of me. Doesn't have that frantic look, though. I think it's just the males causing nonsense. And as soon as one starts to go, then they all follow. That herding instinct, incredibly powerful. Oh, here come the rest of them. Nimbly dashing across the road. It makes sense. You can't really afford to be that one Impala that stops and stands and goes, "Why are we running?" Because you never know. Might be everybody knows something that you don't, and it could be wild dogs chasing behind or something similar. So when one runs, they all go. It doesn't do to be cynical. There we go. Right, are you all done now? Or we still got one? Have we got one? No, just one racing one in front of us. Okay, there we go. All done. They've all. Oh no, there's the late one. Dashing across. Beautiful. I think they're just in high spirits as the temperature starts to drop and the males have been knocking horns with each other. All is calm, casual and collected. Alright. Onwards! For we have miles to go. Not quite miles. Well, yeah, a few miles. Before we reach the safety of home and Amanda's cooking. So, I keep bumping into the elephants everywhere I go. We had to sort of slowly but surely weave our way in between that herd on our way out of here. They were a little bit antsy. They're still not all that happy. I think there's a couple of big bulls around. The wind at least has dropped though, which has definitely improved everything's mood. As we duck around this massive broken up marula tree, on the subject of impalas, Joyce, I don't think anybody's seen Nelson recently. Very nice. Very, very nice. Oh, no. I was so certain it was going to stay. Well done, Jandre. It was a black-bellied bustard standing in the road. Oh, it's going back down again. Okay, round the next corner. Let's go. Fingers crossed it decides to stay. Joyce, I haven't seen Nelson in forever. When was Nelson last seen? Those of you, I was on leave, so I'm not sure if he was seen whilst I was away. I think the last time must have been about a month and a half ago with Brent, possibly even more. I haven't seen Nelson in what feels like forever. Definitely saw it go down somewhere here. So Nelson, for new viewers who have missed out on our different characters, Nelson is one of the most famous Impala in all the world, and that is the reason that we know it's Nelson and that we can identify him from the other 100,000 Impala is the fact that he has one horn and one eye. Hence the name Nelson for those of you who are history buffs. I tried to call him Harvey Dent, but I was shot down in flames for that, and he became Nelson. The one-horned, one-eyed Impala with one ambition, which was just to stay alive. I'm sure he came down here. He's somewhere around here. As our Impala went dancing past, and we always get to see that incredible display of physical athleticism, I suppose, would be the best description. Monique, the special little kicks that Impala do when wild dogs are around, it's another form, it's basically a form of stotting. So stotting is when an antelope, I've lost him, I don't know where he went, searched high and low. Stotting is, for those of you who didn't know, it is a way of an antelope's way of showing off, and it's basically the antelope saying, "Don't challenge me. I'm big and I'm fit and strong and fast, and you might as well not even bother because I'll just outrun you." It's showing off essentially, and they do it with each other, and they do it with predators as well. And they probably find that the little kicks that Impala do in alarm and panic may well be a form of stotting to show off how big or how strong and healthy they are. Not necessarily big, but just strong and healthy. And the Impala have an amazing variety of stotting. They do these enormous bounding leaps, and they also do those incredible handstands where they essentially flick their back feet over their shoulders and the whole back arches in this beautiful shape. How they do it and don't break, I don't know. I definitely couldn't do that. It is amazing to witness. And the most famous, I think, of all of the stotting styles of all antelope must be those of the springbuck. And the springbuck does a very special style of stotting known as pronking. This sentence is starting to get confusing with the stotting and the pronking, but essentially what pronking is, it's when the springbuck jump up and they draw all four limbs close together and they arch their back up high and they spring almost in slow motion up into the air. Massive, massive jumps. So that is a form of stotting called pronking, and is completely unique to springbuck. We don't get springbuck in this particular area, but they are essentially the arid equivalent of Impala. I'm so disappointed. That black-bellied bustard looked amazing, and I was hoping it might even give us its call. And just speaking of birds and calling, actually, we're going into ground hornbill nesting season soon. So they start to call now from October. Still got a couple of weeks, but it's something that we're going to be keeping an eye out for, because you never know when a ground hornbill family might decide to nest in our Traverse area, and that's something that would be incredibly exciting for those critically endangered birds. While we skip past 3 in a row pan and continue on our journey to the west, let's find out what James has planned for his last few moments of the sunset safari.
It is blowing up with something of a gale from the northwest now, and I've just come to this area so that you can see the mountains. We'll go a little bit further and then I shall stop. In fact, I shall stop right here because there are some impala crossing the road. Do you see them, David? There they are. Yes, very nice. Now, what I wanted to show you, of course, is the fact that the mountains are visible in the background there, and they are not, in fact, covered in a burgeoning storm that might dump some water on us. They are covered in some smoke and some haze and some dust, and that's because of the wind. There's possibly a forestry fire up there, and of course it is the time of the year when the little bit of rangeland that has grass on it left will be burned in order to stimulate the new green growth for the spring. And that's why that is a hazy horizon, and I don't think it's going to clean until we get either a very severe cold front coming through, or until we've had some rain to wash the dust out of the air. Those impala have decided that they'd like to be on Biffle's hook for the evening. Obviously they're going to some kind of eating jaunt. That is what they do on a Monday evening. David, what are you going to do tonight? Is there something special? Have you got anything special planned at the...
Movie night, James.
Is it movie night tonight? What is the movie?
The Gods Must Be Crazy.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Now everybody, if you have not seen The Gods Must Be Crazy, do yourself a favour. It is a fantastic film. Let's go back to the other member of the black-bellied bustard family that we get here with Jamie. Jamie isn't that one, it's the bird that she's looking at that I'm referring to.
I don't think I'm a member of the black-bellied bustard family. I think my parents would be very surprised if I was. But we do have a red-crested Korhaan, and I'm really hoping that it's going to call for us. Excuse me.
Yes.
Thank you. I've done so well. Bird that we're going into breeding season with, and I can hear one calling not too far away from where we are, and I'm hoping that our gentleman might start to whistle in return. He keeps moving further and further away from us, very high-pitched, but I can't imitate it well enough to trick this particular individual into thinking that I am indeed a member of the bustard family. They've also got an incredible, it's something that I've been trying to get on these live safaris since I started working here over a year ago, which was the mating display of a red-crested Korhaan, where they fly right up into the air and then they close their wings and come tumbling towards the ground at a very high speed, only to open their wings right at the last moment. And the females, for some inexplicable reason, find this display of stupidity incredibly attractive. That's, I suppose, maybe not that incredible, actually. It's something that I've really struggled to get on camera. They're quite skittish, and this one's already now moved off almost completely. But it is fantastic to witness it. Given them a nickname, they're the suicide bird, since it looks like they are committing suicide, and it's something that can be quite terrifying. I've had one fall out of the sky once right onto or close to falling onto my bonnet of my car, or the hood, as you call it in the States, the hood of the car. Yes, it's the hood of the car. I get confused between that and the boot and the trunk. We call the back, the end, the boot, and you call it the trunk. Anyway, never mind. So yes, it comes tumbling out of the sky, and it nearly landed on my hood. Sounds ridiculous. I don't know why. For some reason, that's the one word that I really struggle with, because this to me is a bonnet of my car. Which I suppose is equally stupid, I suppose. That's the bonnet, also known as the hood. Can't take it seriously. Anyway, moving on. It's called a red-crested Korhaan because it actually has a red crest. Go figure. But it's usually flat, hidden beneath a sort of a bluish patch of fur. And you hardly ever get to see it. So that's something to add to our list of things we need to put on Safari Live. The suicide birds or the red-crested Korhaans tumble out of the sky, and it's red crest, which I don't think I've managed. I'm not sure if any of the other current guides have managed. I think he's disappeared for now. And I've turned my lights on, but it's pretty much a superfluous action at this point. Summer is definitely on its way. Our days are getting lovely and long. And at some point we will be changing the times. Not just yet. Nobody panic. Not just yet. We will keep you updated as to when that happens. But at some point we will have to shift the sunset safaris a little bit. The best time to be out on a safari, of course, is first thing in the morning and in the afternoon, when your nocturnal animals are more likely to be moving about. It's not too hot. The nocturnal animals might even still be kicking around if you're lucky. I love it! This has come through from Korhaan, who said, with our new member of the Safari Live team, Steve the Stick Insect, our new logo should be Stick Around with Safari Live. I like it. Catchy. What else could we have? There must be more. Stick. No, I think Korhaan's got the best one. I can't think of anything better. Hey Steve, what do you think? He says he's happy on the first aid kit, and please don't bug him anymore. Ha, bug him. I think the madness has descended. Kirsty, can we get a cricket track for me as well, please? And she casually just goes, "Yeah, you need one." Anyway, it's time for me on that note, because I think that the madness has well and truly set in. It is time for me to say a big farewell and a big thank you to all of you for joining us from across the corners of the globe. So thank you to Jandre, and thank you to you all. We'll catch up with you tomorrow on the Sunrise Safari. Bye-bye, everybody.
I was just saying to David that do you remember at school when you had to do that thing known as the impromptu speech, when you were given some random topic? Come on, Rusty, you old bag. And that minute you had to then go and stand in front of the class and talk for a minute, and how that minute felt like at least a century. And I was just saying, well, you know, a game drive out here is a bit like a 3-hour impromptu speech. I mean, I wish I could have had this experience before I had to do the impromptu speech at school. There was always one or two in the class who stood up there and went, "Mountains." And there would be that unspeakably cringeworthy 40 seconds before they managed to get a word out. Mountains are big, and we went there on our last holiday. How much longer, ma'am? 20 seconds. Oh. We're doing okay there, Dave. Yes. There we are again. The crickets, I can hear them coming out of the final control. Crick, 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 crick. I had a girlfriend once who made cricket sounds every time I made a joke. She didn't have a sense of humour, of course. Right, we've got a few minutes left to drive, everybody. I'm now speechless now that I brought up the subject of the impromptu speech. I don't know what to say to you anymore. So I'll tell you that we will obviously have a sunrise safari tomorrow, but you probably already knew that. Now many of you, thank you for providing me with a topic for conversation. You've said that you've loved The Gods Must Be Crazy, which is that wonderful film by Jamie Ace about the sand bushman, and quite a lot of life lessons besides. And I think it was a wonderful, wonderful show. What on earth is going on there, David? Seems to be some kind of party. We were going to go down that road, but we're not anymore because there's a very large party going on there. And if you haven't seen it, it's about a sand bushman, and the whole premise of the thing is that a Coke bottle gets dropped out of an aeroplane into the middle of the Kalahari where there aren't even stones, and how this object becomes so incredibly useful, and then it becomes a source of conflict within the little group because everyone wants it, and it's the concept of ownership that didn't exist before. And it's an amazing, amazing film. Which is a little bit dated perhaps, but it is an interesting film. We're now on quarantine clearings, hoping for one last sighting of an animal or something with a heartbeat, so that I might not have to talk utter rubbish to you for the last few minutes. we have crickets playing in the final control now. There's an Impala. I'm feeling so distraught now. They were playing crickets, David. It wasn't very nice of them, was it? This is a confidence game, you know. Alright, everybody. They're still going. That's going to be it from us. You can have a last look at some Impala. A big thank you to all of you for joining us on what wasn't a tremendous trial of a drive with the lions and the elephants. Thanks to Jamie and Gendre and Cheetah Plains. And a big thank you to you, David, for your efforts today. And of course, Kirsten McLennan Smith, the meanest person in the world, and Geraldine, the source knee in the world. We will see you all tomorrow at 6 o'clock. I hope you've had a good time. Bye-bye.